Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show, coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska, where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome aboard, everybody, to the Must Read Alaska show, coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. Say, guess who we have on the show today? We've got somebody that you're going to really want to hear from. We've got Jamie Allard, the Assemblywoman from Eagle River, Chugiak, who is now running for House. And we're going to find out what she has to say about her campaign and what the heck the Anchorage Assembly is trying to do by shutting down observer access over at the vote counting office, at the elections office. And that's going to be a really interesting conversation you're not going to want to miss. But first, I'm Suzanne Downing, and my co-host John Quick is on the other mic. Scott is the master of the universe as our producer, and you can hear him on the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday edition of Must Read Alaska show. And he hosts that, and I sometimes join him and help out and chime in. And I think last week he had Spencer Moore as one of his guest hosts. That was great. John Quick, tell us what's weird on the Kenai Peninsula this week.
Well, hi, Suzanne, and I'm so excited that we have Jamie Allard on today. She has been a hero for conservatives all over the state, giving people a hope that there's still change that conservatives can do, not only as elected officials, but folks gearing up and showing up to assembly meetings and city council meetings. She has been just amazing at being able to do that and rally troops. I'm excited to hear from her, but first we'll talk a little bit about what's happening on the Kenai Peninsula Borough. Some very exciting stuff has happened in the city of Kenai in this last week. So there's been a newly elected city council member. His name is James Baisden. James was the former chief of staff for the borough. He's a longtime fire chief here in Alaska. And he came in with a couple campaign promises. One, he was not going to take a paycheck. So he was going to donate every paycheck that he gets every month. Now it's only $500, but it's $500. He's going to donate it every month to a new charity that's in and around the city of Kenai, which I just think is phenomenal. I think more elected officials should follow that suit. And then the second campaign promise was to do something about COVID mandates. And so he presented a resolution that the city of Kenai would be opposed to any mask mandates or vaccine requirements, not only within the city of Kenai's staff, but also businesses in and around the city of Kenai. And I gotta hand it to James, because not everybody on the city of Kenai council are staunch conservatives. And that's part what makes America great, is everybody from all walks of life can run for elected positions. And he got this thing passed unanimously, which is a bit of a miracle, because the council often votes 5-4, whatever, is pretty split on these kind of decisions, and he was able to get it passed unanimously. So good news for the city of Kenai.
That is amazing news. And I'm just wondering if Scott Levesque, as our producer, has an applause button that he can hit at some point, because that is really amazing. And he just got on the city council. So it's not like he's been at this elected position for years and years. I mean, he just got it on in October, right?
Yeah, he just got on. And, I hope James stays a while in politics, because he's a guy who doesn't need a job. He doesn't need the money. He could be retired on a beach in, Tahiti or whatever, but he chooses to volunteer, and he's got some good ideas. And I look forward to seeing what he does with his political career.
Well, and our guest, Jamie Allard, who we're going to introduce in a second, I bet she wishes that she had somebody like him helping her out on the Anchorage Assembly.
Yeah,
no kidding. Well, as let's pivot on that, and let's introduce Jamie. I know you're here listening quietly, and that's just rare for you to just listen quietly. You're usually a lot more vocal than that. But welcome to the show.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm trying not to giggle, but it could be rare.
Yeah, well, we're good friends. I'm a really good friend of Jamie's, therefore I can rib her, and we have a really good time. And we always have a good laugh when we talk, because politics can't be all just horrible and nasty. Although I tell you, people that you deal with there on the Anchorage Assembly, it is stunning how difficult some of those people are and how unreasonable they are. And it makes me think that, you are kind of a Ronald Reagan conservative. You're not out there in on the edge. You're actually really a centrist conservative in what conservatives always considered to be normal. But these guys that you're dealing with on the Anchorage Assembly have moved so far left. And I just have to hand it to you. I admire you for being able to keep your cool as much as you do when you're dealing with them and all the crazy things they're doing. But now you are running for House District 22, and that's what we want to talk about first. You represent a lot of these people in that district in Eagle River, and now you're going to hopefully represent them in Juneau. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It was something I wanted to do anyways. And, I've learned a lot on the Assembly, and I've learned a lot working for Governor Dunleavy prior, and I'm looking forward to representing the community of Eagle River at a different level now.
Oh, well,
I will remain on the Assembly until January of 2023. So it's not like I'm going away tomorrow.
Oh,
so we'll still have a little bit more fun on that Assembly.
Oh, that's great. And of course, the opposition research, they're going to have their cameras on you every single meeting from this point forward. If they haven't already, they're going to be trying to figure out ways to trip you up. But so, how has it, what do you think you can bring to the table for going to Juneau and representing Eagle River? What do you think that you're going to bring to the table in the legislature, which is, you've got 40 or 39 other people. What's Jamie Allard going to do in Juneau?
I think I'm a gal of my word. So I'm not going to do something where my community doesn't stand by. And I think that was the biggest obstacle that we've been trying to deal with lately, is that our current representative maybe isn't representing the community like we should be. And so I'm looking forward to being that voice. I have not had any pushback at all, really, within my community of my supporters of the direction that we're trying to have our city go. And I just want to be that voice, and that trusted voice, that trusted conservative voice that people can count on. And they know that I'm not going to sway.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about the boundaries of this new district, District 22. People might not know that after redistricting, all of these boundaries in Anchorage specifically really moved around a lot, more so than in other places of the state, I think. And actually, you've got a slightly different area, but this to me looks like Eagle River proper, and then up to Arctic Valley. So tell me some of the geographic boundaries. I know that that road that goes over the highway there at Glen Allen, I can't remember, is it Armory Road or something? Mm-hmm. Artillery Road. That's kind of the boundary. What are some of the other geographic high points for that district?
Right. So we actually start at the Highland Road exit, and we go all the way back until the road dead ends off Highland Road. So then we go all the way back off of Eagle River Road too. And it goes all the way back to our nature center. So we have all that industry and all those houses. And we go as far over north as Eagle River Loop. And we've kind of taken in the redistricting, brought in a little bit more of the downtown, which used to be more part of District 13, which is now District 24. And then now we go all the way up to the highway. So we've taken in a little bit more, but it's not so much that it's different from what the old District 14 was. So District 22 is, I would argue, probably one of the most conservative districts in the state. I absolutely would. And I know this district. I know individuals' houses by just meeting their dogs. So I'm very familiar with it when door knocking. So I'm excited.
Right, because you've door knocked in this area as you ran for assembly, and also when you made your first run for office, which you ran for House, and unfortunately the unions came after you, and we got a union candidate who then, of course, immediately abandoned the Republican caucus and moved over to the Democratic caucus. That was really unfortunate for the entire state that we had somebody who was actually a turncoat who got elected from Eagle River. Hopefully they'll make a better choice this time. Well, so what are the people of Eagle River really looking for in a representative? I mean, obviously they made a sort of mistake last time. They got Kelly Merrick in there, and she absolutely turned on them. So what are they actually looking for?
They're looking for family values. They're looking for integrity and trust. They're looking for returned phone calls. They're looking to see their representative at meetings and functions and town halls and involvement. Just because we're down in Juneau doesn't mean we can't come home on the weekends. It doesn't mean we can't be involved in our communities. We missed out as an Assemblywoman. I see that I'm in those community council meetings and those events, but I didn't see our representatives there. And that is something that Eagle River is really involved in, community giving back. And that is what I want to keep going. And that's what we're going to have to do. But we got to stick to our values of what the community wants.
But what do you think that you've gotten so many people supporting you right out of the gate? You've got tons of support. You have 50 people on your sponsor list for your first fundraiser, which is coming up on the 9th, 6th, 7th, 8th. What day is your fundraiser coming up on December 9th?
It's on the 9th of December. Yep. And you're right. I do have a lot of those strong supporters, but I have to tell you, these are people that I've met over time that I've broken bread with, I've had dinner with, I've traveled with, I've had breakfast with, I've had many times where these people have become my friends. And I believe I've proven myself to them, and they know that I'm not going to let them down. There is a thing where people aren't trusted in government. There's politicians who aren't trusted. I want to go past that. I want people to come back around, trust us. And I also want kids to run around and say, wow, back in the day, I say this, I'm 50, when we used to want to be the president of the United States of America. Like when said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be the president. I want that to come back.
So people need to be able to trust their government, that their government is going to be a noble institution and not degrade the institution itself with some of the things that they do. So John, I know you're on the other line there. Do you have any questions for Jamie that you were thinking
Jamie, of? One of the things, Jamie, I think you've done really well at is being able to kind of get people excited about showing up to the table again. And why do you think it's important for people to show up to meetings, to make phone calls to their elected officials, to get involved? Why is it important for the average, hockey mom or hockey dad to get back in the ring and lend some hours or some money to efforts around the state?
Well, we already saw a difference of what happened when we rallied the forces. So we've seen people turn out time and time again. We've seen new people get elected. We just elected our mayor. That was because the community woke up and all the individuals came out to say, this is the direction we want to go. These are the things that we're going to have happen. And based on that, we need people to be involved so we can change our politics.
Who's got a dog in the room? That's what I want to know. I hear that must be your dog, Jamie. How adorable.
Sorry, that's Jose. Sorry, that's real world. That's real life.
That is real life. No kidding. Well, that's, that is actually really hilarious. So he's got something to say about it as well. So John?
Yeah. What do you think is one of the biggest things you've learned while being an assembly person for the city of Anchorage?
Patience, just patience. And I think that's because you gotta trying to build bridges here, and sometimes more is said when you don't say anything. So you have to learn patience, because sometimes when you introduce or you have that conversation with individuals on the assembly, they might disagree with you at that moment, but you have to be patient enough to listen to them as well, because they need to be able to digest what you said, and you have to digest what they said. And if you do it right, both sides, we could come together on a lot. Like, to be honest, probably 92 to 93% of the time, I actually vote with the assembly. There's these core issues I cannot wrap my head around as much as I try. I really like my freedoms and I like my rights. And there are those things that that's not government's place to take those things away. So I would say patience. Trying to learn from the other side could be challenging. I have a lot of Democrat friends, so progressives are a little bit different than I am, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
It's really interesting, because it's fascinating to hear that you have progressive friends, because a lot of us who are conservative, we started out as progressives. I know I started out as progressive, and I wouldn't say that I was super liberal, but But the progressives nowadays are so hardcore, they can't be friends with conservatives. And I never remember being like that when I was more of a progressive. I always respected people's views, and I may not have agreed with them because I didn't understand them. But boy, it gets a little tough these days because you find that they disown you as friends or family if you are conservative. And I'm sure that you've had your fair share of that.
Yeah, I'm learning things every day with where people stand on certain issues. I say brought up in the military because I was in the service, and we're all the same. And there was no room or time to think of anything that was going to tear us apart, because at any moment we could be literally in a foxhole fighting for our lives together. So this is different type of, I feel, atmosphere that I'm in, and I'm doing my best to represent those who need that representation.
Yeah, well, and you do have a lot of military people in your district, isn't that correct?
We do. We have about 25% of military in our district. It's one of the highest districts with military, whether they're retired, whether they're married to military, whether they're veterans, whether they're still active duty. We have a huge percentage of military. So if you were to go down to any location in Eagle River, you would run into somebody who's either married to or is military. That is accurate.
Very good. And so let's turn for a minute to talk about the assembly and what's coming up on the calendar on Tuesday. And I wrote a little bit about this on Sunday, Jamie. I just wrote a story about how you've got an ordinance in front of you that actually changes the municipal code, and it limits the ability of the public to come in and observe the ballot counting process at Election Central down there on Ship Creek, where the election office is now located. And it's a big building, kind of a warehouse down there. And that's where all the ballots end up and where all the counting takes place, which is unusual because in the old days, we did elections differently, but with these mail-in elections that we have now, all the ballots go down there and then they get counted. And in the past, campaigns have been able to have up to 4 observers. And all of a sudden, this ordinance has come forward, which seems to be in reaction to the most recent election where Barbara Jones, who is the municipal clerk, had some real heartache with the Bronson observers. She didn't appreciate them. She was short with them. She treated them very poorly. And she ended up with, kind of cross-threaded with some of the Bronson observers. And now here comes an ordinance that says only 1 observer per campaign. That observer has to follow the observer handbook. And Barbara Jones herself is in control of the observer handbook and can change it at any time. And then if she changes that handbook at any time without any supervision, she can change it, and they have to observe it. And she can also kick them out of the building if she decides that they're just not suitable. So that's an ordinance that you and your fellow assembly members will be hearing on Tuesday. Did I catch most of the high points on that?
You did. There is where she does, the clerk wants to reduce it to give to the assembly down to 1 person. We'll start off with 4, but I think what she's trying to convey is if there's 15 persons that are running, for example, mayor, 4 times 15, that's quite a few people in that area, and that she does have the luxury of reducing it down to 1. Now, I would have to argue that that's not how we should go. We're going to put amendments forward saying, okay, well, what's going to trigger that? Like, what are you bringing forward to say, we're going to reduce this amount based on what reasoning? That has to be addressed. So that's going to be a little challenging for the rest of the assembly members to come on board with those amendments. The transparency that we're showing on these changes in Title 28, I'm not in agreement with. And the reason I'm not in agreement with it is because are we doing these changes because we had so many people come out and vote, and it actually helped our voting process? It helped people get out. These people were given the opportunity by individuals that were running a campaign that said, hey, you know what? Your vote didn't count. Let's help you. We can fix that. And to change that, it almost feels like it's not going to be transparent anymore. And some of the other topics was that she didn't want the videoing to go on inside of the building while the ballots are being counted. That's not transparency. Then they also, the I'm on the elections committee, but Barbara also wanted, let's not say Barbara, the clerk's office wants to also bring forward that the persons who are inside the facility as volunteers can't have cameras either. I have a problem with that. We are now passing a law, or we have already passed a law for body cams on police officers. And to say that an individual can't come in as a volunteer and record what's going on, that's not transparency. So I don't know what we would want to be hiding, not allowing those individuals to do that. I find there's no problem with it. So there's quite a few things that need to be addressed.
So during the last election, there were observers for the Bronson campaign, and they did have cameras inside there, and they did record some things that some of them were misunderstood, some of them were legitimate. The one woman took a picture of Assemblymember Chris Constant delivering a massive bouquet of flowers to the city clerk while the counting was in process. And he was also a functionary of the Forrest Dunbar campaign. So here you have somebody who is a campaign worker, who is also a sitting assemblyman, which means he is the clerk's boss, and he's delivering her a big $70 bouquet of flowers right in the middle of counting. And that was recorded by camera and from the Bronson campaign volunteer. That's the kind of thing that a camera can pick up. That if somebody just came out and said that happened, it would be a he said, she said. And there were other things that were photographed that ended up being important, but it seems like the argument that they have is that there are cameras in the facility that are running, not 24/7, but during working hours that are pointed at the various areas, and that should be good enough. But for those of us, I'm just telling you as a citizen, for those of us who are watching that, and we do watch that, we really can't see what's going on. It's very fuzzy.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
It's not acceptable.
No, it's not. And I can give a great example. If you're ever in the assembly chambers, what happens in the assembly chambers is very, very different than what you're going to see on camera. So anytime the chair gavels in or out, there are things that are seen and heard. You can't see or hear when someone says something under their breath or their eye contact. So when you take that off, there's many things that the public misses.
That's right.
And it's the same thing with the transparency in the elections. So there's moves we're going to make to amend. We have to have complete transparency. There is absolutely nothing wrong with cameras being situated in every angle in that facility so the public can see. Unless you're trying to hide something. And I don't believe that's their intention, but the perception of the public could see that could be the intention, and we don't want that.
Yeah, and in a time when the public is really having a hard time wrapping its mind around elections in general, because we've got so many sort of loopholes. We've got some problems with all in the mail-in voting all over the country, where we're finding ballots in ditches, where we have some questions about whether or not ballots are being counted, or whether or not there are legitimate ballots being counted. Somebody, there's fraudulent voting, and there's a lot of concern about the legitimacy of elections, especially ever since the COVID era, when a lot of things went to the mail-in ballot. So the one thing that I noted is that in general, the laws tend to want to give more liberty and more access and more transparency to the public throughout our country's history. And this is one where you have a law that is creating less transparency, less access, and then it's creating less trust.
That's true. We have election integrity issues, and in order to bring the public on board and to trust the election process, we have to be more transparent. And I was looking at the numbers. The cost is definitely increased, and also the fact of with mail-in ballots, and the fact that it's very interesting to watch. But if you see when we voted in, when I say we, the assembly, and back in 2017, and then it took effect in 18. As soon as that took effect, different people, different types of values were being elected to the assembly. So it shifted in a direction that's interesting to watch. So we started losing seats. And when I say we, people, the Republicans, I'm just going to say Republicans. So now all of a sudden, the assembly is absolutely imbalanced. And before, we've never seen that, but we don't have a balance on the assembly anymore. And all of a sudden, the imbalance plus the mail-in ballots, I believe, have played a huge play in it with those mail-in ballots. And that didn't go to the vote of the people. The assembly were the ones that decided they wanted to have mail-in ballots. And that's just an injustice to me. If we were going to have mail-in ballots, it should have gone to the vote of the people, period. No questions asked.
Well, that might be something, and you get to Juneau, you might be able to get some legislation up that says that before a community can go to mail-in ballots, they have to have a referendum from the people. The people have to vote on it, because I think if the people might have voted on it before and said, yeah, that sounds good. But now that we've seen exactly how it works and how many ways that it can go wrong, I'm not sure that the people of Anchorage would actually vote in favor of it at this point. We know an awful lot more about it. Well, it seems likely to pass.
That is absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, that is sorry, there is a delay, but that is absolutely one of my number one things that I want to work with Senator Shower and some other legislators on, is I find it disheartening that we have different types of voting rules depending on what municipality you live in, and we have to set a standard, and I think it's very confusing for most. So that is, election integrity is at the top of my list.
Well, and if we don't pull that together, I fear that Eagle River may actually exit the municipality, and then that would leave Anchorage as a very, very far left leaning city, and it would sort of disintegrate into sort of a Seattle, San Francisco scenario. But it seems like it's going to pass, because you've got a lot of leftists on the assembly. And you've got Barbara Jones, who is crafting this as the city clerk. So what can the public do? I mean, this meeting is on Tuesday night. It's at 5 o'clock down at the Lusac Library ground floor. What's the public's role in this?
Well, I usually wait about the day before or 2 days before. I'm going to go ahead and post the link on my social media so the public can go ahead and click on it. They could read it. It's about 14 pages. It's not too long, but they come out and testify. We have dinner consent agenda, which is about 7:30 that we come back in to talk about these issues that we'll be voting on. So if the public shows up about 7 o'clock tomorrow, they'll be able to come out and testify on this topic of Title 28, and it's 2021-110. It's a pretty important issue, and it's right at the top of my list.
Yeah, and glad you mentioned that. Go ahead, John. You were going to say something.
I was going to say, what Jamie, what do you hope let's say we're a year from now and you're on the House. What do you hope your legacy will be as an assembly person in Anchorage as you look back on it?
Oh, wow. That's that question actually makes me pretty emotional. I would like people to look back and just say that they came out to be part of the process with the assembly and local politics because I got them out there to do it. I hope they sit there and say, you know what, if it wasn't for Jamie, I probably wouldn't be part of this part of the community and the politics. And if I can just go away from the assembly, getting people motivated to get more involved in local politics, I would be one happy camper. I'd be okay.
Well, and I think you've actually done that. We all know that Barack Obama is a huge community organizer, but he's got nothing on you. You have been able to rally the forces. And when you rally the forces, they follow, they show up and they turn out. And I imagine some of your strong lefties on the assembly, they ought to be big donors to your campaign for House, because I know they probably want to get rid of you so that they can have their way without you pointing out their hypocrisy and their absolute disdain for a lot of things that we consider to be just plain old human decency. Well, we're coming to the end of our show, and this really went fast. I want to thank you so much, Jamie, for being on the show, and wish you all the best in your fundraiser at the Petroleum Club on the 9th, I believe, at 5:30, and it's Thursday. And I wish you a Merry Christmas. Please give our best to Dan and the girls as well, and to your dog there, Jose, as well. And thank you, John, for being on the show today. Thank you, Scott Levesque. Everybody check out all of our stories at mustreadalaska.com. And if you're a supporter of Must Read Alaska, I just want to thank you so much. It makes it possible for us to keep standing up for what's right in Alaska. And if you want to support the conservative side of the news here, the donate button is there on the right-hand side of the page. And we will continue standing strong against the big blue tide of that liberal media through thick and thin. We're going to be here next year for sure. Until next week, we're signing off from somewhere in Alaska.